Good morning to all pious yogi. So this morning is the closing of this Vipassana meditation retreat. So I shall answer those questions raised by the meditators. The first question, what are the more suitable objects of meditation for yogi who is critically ill and dying? When I was in hospitals after operation, I was given morphine-based painkillers, and I found it very difficult to meditate. Um, eh, the most suitable objects of meditation for yogi who is critical ill and dying is their own pain and mental suffering. Or in other words, there's a time that meditators, a yogi, should be heedful. The word heedful means apamada. In those one must practice the four foundations of mindfulness diligently. Um, um, so there are many discourse explains the importance of be mindful towards the end of one's life. For example, one of the discourses found in Anuruddha Samyutta. At the time, whenever Anuruddha was sick or afflicted and gravely ill. So yeah, his mind was not affected totally by this painful feeling or bodily painful feeling. So a number of the bhikkhus approached the Venerable Anuruddha and asked him, in what dwelling does the Venerable Anuruddha usually dwell, so that the recent body painful feelings do not persist obsessing his mind? So the Venerable Anuruddha answered, I dwell with a mind well established in the four foundations of mindfulness, that the recent body feelings do not persist obsessing my mind. So in meditators, do not want this unpleasant body feeling persist in their mind, then they must practice the four foundation of mindfulness diligently. In fact, meditators might know there's a well-known saying in this practice of mindfulness. There is pain is the key to the door of nibbana. Pain is the key to the attainment of enlightenment. So at the time, a yogi who's critically ill, that yogi possesses a key to the door of nibbana. So he or she must practice mindfulness diligently. There's no time to become sluggish or reluctant to practice. But in one, for example, in this case, the yogi was given morphine-based painkillers, and found it very difficult to meditate. So if this painkiller causes some side effect, especially making the mind to become dull. There's no more clarity in the mind. And the practice of meditators is not yet matured. Then it could be difficult to meditate. So that's why in many discourses say that when one's healthy, this is the right time to strive. That means to practice the Dharma, especially the four foundations of mindfulness diligently. So one must begin to practice at this present moment when one is still healthy. When one can practice diligently day by day, even though one could not attain enlightenment in this very life, it is possible to attain enlightenment at the time of death. There's a discourse explaining that one can attain enlightenment at the time of death. But one must develop their fundamental faculties. As you know, saddha, or confidence with right understanding, virya, or effort or energy, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom. So these five mental faculties can be strengthened. In other words, becoming stronger. If these five mental faculties have been fully developed and cultivated, then one can expect these seven fruits or and benefits when one's mental faculties have been fully developed. So according to this discourse, the first fruits and benefit, one attains final knowledge early in this very life. If one doesn't attain final knowledge in this very life, then one attains the final knowledge at the time of death. So that's why one should not practice mindfulness meditation. They only practice in the retreats or in the monastery. They should practice daily as much possible. It's because one of the ways to strengthen the five mental faculties is to develop mindfulness constantly and continuously. Sometimes some meditators maybe they make their own judgment, or based on the judgment of others, that their mental faculties are not strong, they cannot attain enlightenment in this life. Actually, this type of saying is considered a kind of obstructions to the Dharma. Because of your saying or your own judgment, saying that this person cannot attain enlightenment because their five mental faculties are weak. because only the Buddha can judge a person who is able to attain enlightenment, or who is endowed with matured parami, the matured 10 perfections and mental faculties. So even though one's mental faculties are not strong and sharp, one can sharpen them, strengthen their powers by practicing mindfulness constantly and continuously. So this is one the way mentioned in the commentary. So if one doesn't attain final knowledge, means the highest stage of enlightenment, attaining the arahata, magga jnana, and phala jnana. If one doesn't attain final knowledge early in this way life, or at the time of death, then with the utter destructions of the 5 lower factors, one becomes an attainer of nibbana. It means one attains the 3rd stage of enlightenment and becomes anagami. So there are 5 types of anagami. You may read the books or the scriptures or comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma to find out these 5 types of anagami. So at the time of a critical ill or approaching death, the most important practice is still the 4 foundation mindfulness. It is because only by this practice about 4 foundation mindfulness, then you shall overcome your own mental suffering. So that's why if one can bear with the pain, even though one is critical ill or approaching the death, if one is better to bear with the pain by practicing the 4 foundation mindfulness. So that's why the Buddha say, you are your own refuge. Others cannot become your refuge. So you have to understand the Dharma deeply in order to understand the true meaning, the true sense of what called refuge. So in other discourse, like for example, there's a well-known discourse given to this Nakula Pitta. So when Nakula Pitta was old, afflicted in body and so on, he went to see the Buddha, and the Buddha gave him this advice. Householders, the Buddha addressed him as a householder. You should train yourself thus. Even though I'm afflicted in body, my mind will be unafflicted. Thus should you train yourself. So that's why there's a saying, body pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. It's important to practice at this present moment, now, or not waiting until the time when one falls sick or approaching death. So there's another saying in other traditions of Buddhism. So some of you might heard about this saying. In Chinese, it means 平时不烧香，临时抱佛脚。That means during usual days, one doesn't burn incense but only embraces the Buddha's feet, begging for help in one's hour of need or when one in trouble. So if you understand the teaching, that's why you should practice mindfulness diligently uh, from now onwards. In fact, the word apamada is usually translated as heedful or be heedful. It also implies one who is heedful, one is always mindful. So one should practice mindfulness diligently so that once this practice becomes one's life, or mindfulness is the life of meditators. Then the second question, how to practice precept 9 precept in daily life? Let me precept number 9. A stray cat likes to come and quarrel with my 4 cats, and I used to spray water at them to stop the fight. It is breaking the 9 precept. Actually, these 9 factors of Uposatha Sila, number 9 actually is not precept. Number 9 is the practice of loving kindness. Besides observing these 6 factors of Uposatha Sila. So we cannot make it a rule or like a law of the country that one must practice loving kindness if not one committed some offenses and so on. So of course, when one try to stop the fight between the cats by spraying the water, then one must be mindful whether there's any unwholesome mental states such as dislike, anger behind these actions. So we observe these 9 factors of Uposatha Sila during the retreat or at on the Uposatha day or any days. So besides observing these 8 factors of Uposatha Sila, one practices loving kindness towards all sentient beings in various directions. Then the next question, as a person getting old in the process, he or she loses mental and physical faculties. Will he or she remember the practice of vipassana before? How would one do to maintain before one becomes demented or physically incapable? So the answer is quite similar to the first question. It's better to practice now, to practice mindfulness diligently from now. And the best is you can attain at least the first stage of enlightenment. Then you may not suffer mentally, even though physically was not well. So if one can practice constantly, continuously, every day, if possible, a minimum of an hour a day, or they practice as much possible. So it becomes, the practice of mindfulness becomes their life, or not part of the life. So when they practice constantly, definitely they becomes more skillful at practice and becomes a habitual practice, then they will not forget the practice. They will always remember their practice. Uh, s- so um so that's why we can say that the life of a yogi is mindfulness. If there's no mindfulness, then as if the yogi is lifeless. Um, so um, it's better to live in the present moment instead of worrying about the future or thinking of the future. Um, you want begins to practice diligently, um, then maybe this unwholesome condition or what called undesirable situation or may not um, arise or manifest towards the end of life. Um, so this is the question number 3. Then the next question, kindly elaborate on key takeaway points a beginner should remember from this retreat. Um, so the the key points of the practice, um, as I discussed in the previous Dhamma talk, is see things or understand things as they really occur, or see things, understand things as they really are. Um, so even meditators practice diligently um, in the retreats or outside the retreat. They only have to remember these key points or guideline of mindfulness meditation. See things uh, as they really are, or understand things as they really occur. So here things refer to um, mental and physical phenomena on nama and rupa, or in other words, the 5 aggregates. The first aggregate, rupa khanda, aggregates of physicality or materiality is rupa. The next 4 aggregates are grouped under nama of mental phenomena. So the first four aggregates are feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness group uh, um, under nama. So meditators have to learn to develop their mindfulness so that their mindfulness becomes stronger, sharper, clearer, and able to see things as they really are. We do not put effort in order to make the a phenomenon or a process of movements to become clearer. What should be strengthened is one's own mindfulness or awareness. So meditators have only two kinds of phenomena that they should be taken as an object of mindfulness. One is nama or mental phenomena or mental activities or mental objects, mental processes. The other is rupa, physical phenomena. In other words, physical processes or bodily activities such as walking, stretching up out the arms, bending the arms, sitting down, and so on. So meditators have only two types of phenomena. Among these two types of phenomena, be mindful of a mental object or mental process that's happening at that present moment is more important than mindful of a physical process or physical phenomenon such as movements, heat, hardness, heaviness, and so on. It is because bhavana, or the word bhavana, is mental training, mental culture, mental development. And the purpose of mental training or mental culture, mental development is to attain liberation of mind or ceto vimutti. There's no such teachings of liberation of body. So it is the mind that will experience, for example, happiness, suffering, and so on. It is a mind that will create all kinds of karma that give rise to painful results and present result, depending on the karma, or either an unwholesome karma or a wholesome karma. So the karma committed by a person is due to their intention or volition, which is defiled, for example, by lobha or greed, dosa, hatred, and moha, delusion. So one can know whether the karma is wholesome or unwholesome by being mindful of their state of mind behind it, their intention or volition to do something. So that's why be mindful of the mind is always important. So whenever meditators practice mindfulness, during sitting or walking or doing some daily routine activities, they have to be very mindful of their body activities or body sensation, such as pain, aching, and so on. If their mindfulness of body phenomena and body sensation is weak or superficial, then their mind will wander away to thinking, to the past, to the future frequently. Some meditators have to put forth effort so that their mindfulness is attentive or precise and energetic. But as some meditators have not attained enlightenment, mental hindrances such as restlessness or udacca in Pali, or sloth and torpor or tinamida, or thoughts of a sensual object or kamacchanda, nivarana, and so on, can arise at any moment. As, as long as the mindfulness is not strong, and effort is not strong at that moment. So meditators have to be mindful of that mental object. For example, thinking or dislike and so on. So meditators have to be mindful of their mental object, thinking, dislike and so on, until that mental object or mental process had disappeared by itself. Then meditators may have to direct their mind back to the body object or sensation, whichever is more dominant. Sometimes meditators may have to direct their mind back to the basic object of sitting meditation at that moment. If they did not direct their mind as soon as possible to the back to the body object or the basic object sitting meditation, then another mental object, for example, another thinking, another thoughts can arise in the subsequent movement. So at the beginning of the practice, and as long as the practice is not yet successful, the mindfulness seems slow to notice or to realize that the mind was thinking of something or has been wandering for quite some time. So meditators need to put forth effort so that their process of awareness shall become faster and faster. Able to notice or to realize the arising of a mental object instantly, or able to perceive the arising of a body object or sensation right at the moment of arising. So meditators have to realize that mindful of a mental object or mental process that has arisen or that has appeared at that moment is more important than mindful of the physical object or body sensation. So when meditators want to practice mindfulness at any place or at home or other places, or they may have to they may have to consider whether the place or the time are suitable to meditate or in order to practice mindfulness. So this is explained in the commentary about 4 kinds of clear comprehension. The first is known as clear comprehension of what is benefit, clear comprehension of what is of benefit. So when meditators want to practice mindfulness, they surely they know the benefit of mindfulness meditation. But the commentaries say that they should have to consider the next thing. They call sampajanya. They will consider the time and the place. If the time and the place are conducive to meditate or to practice mindfulness, then meditators can begin their practice. So the third comprehension is known as the domain of a yogi, or clear comprehension of the domain or territory of a meditators. Actually, in brief, the domain or territories of a yogi meditators we can say it's their own mind and body processes. They must in their own mental and physical phenomena. So if they can practice well, definitely they realize the third, the fourth clear comprehension, asamoha sampajanya, or clear comprehension of non-delusion. The word non-delusion, amoha, the meaning is similar to wisdom or panya or jnana or insight knowledge. So if meditators practice the third comprehension, third clear comprehension well, definitely they will realize the fourth clear comprehension or clear comprehension of non-delusion. For example, they realize that at every present moment, there's a pair of processes. That means, for example, there's a phenomenon such as the rising movements during the sitting, and the process of awareness or noting mind. Besides these two processes, meditators cannot find something else. For example, there's an I or yogi who observe this process of rising. There's no notion that my mind observe the rising movements and so on. So meditators when they practice at any place, even in the retreats, sometimes they have to also practice according to this explanation of commentary in relation to these four types of clear comprehension. For example, during the retreat, meditators want to slow down. Sometimes the pace is not suitable to slow down. Then they did not have to slow down very much. So this is the key point of the practice of see things as they really are, or understanding things as they really occur. So meditators have to put forth effort to develop their mindfulness. Mindfulness should become a mental factors. A mental factors that should become dominant. Only when meditators could develop mindfulness constantly and consciously, then they shall be able to gain deeper and deeper concentration. Then another question. There are these three mundane full understanding. Kindly elaborate on the highlights and pitfalls one should be aware of them. So if one can gain these three kinds of mundane full understanding, definitely one's efforts shall become stronger. So before realization of these three kinds of mundane full understanding, whatever experiences or insight knowledge gained by meditators is considered a kind of tender insight. Tender insight means the insight is not strong. But when meditators have gained these three kinds of mundane full understanding, then they will step in the stages of called strong insight. At the time, meditators' virya can become strong. So mindfulness, you will be sharp, or you'll be attentive, precise, energetic from one moment to next moment. The realizations of the three common characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta shall become clearer or more penetrative. Meditators shall gain more penetrative insight knowledge, or deeper insight knowledge. So at the time, meditators also could overcome, for example, what is known as 10 corruptions of insight. So there's no what they call pitfall of this mundane understanding. For example, if a meditator thinks that, or meditators makes his own judgment or her own judgment that they have gained this full understanding, and they become conceited. Conceited means the feeling of mana, or that they have gained this understanding, but in reality, they might not have gained this mundane understanding. So the meditators have gained this three mundane full understanding, especially this understanding of abandoning, where the realization or experience of impermanence, abundance, mana, conceit, the experience or realization of dukkha, abandon tanha, or tanha means attachment, craving. The realization of anatta, abandons the atta, or thinking there's a permanent self. So when meditators have mixed up progress, in general, their defilements becomes lesser or weaker. Their defilements still can arise, but the meditators have gained substantial experiences in the practice of mindfulness. Their defilements may become bigger and shorter because their mindfulness can sense or can perceive that the defilements have a reason. They can mindfully of it instantly, and that defilements will disappear quite instantly. So even though sometimes meditators did not practice mindfulness intensively at home or outside the retreats, if they still develop the habit of mindful of their mind, here outside the retreats, meditators may not be able to mindful of their thinking or planning, especially they are during the working hours. As you know, one has to think, for example, to find a solution to solve problems in the office. One needs to do some planning and so on. So they may not be able to mindful of them as thinking or planning. It's different from the retreats. In the retreats, meditators have to mindful of whatever thinking or mental state that have appear or arisen at that moment. But outside the retreats, even meditators did not practice walking or sitting meditation. They may be doing their works in the office and so on. It's still important to mindful of their mind whenever their mind is defiled by for example anger, dislike, or unhappy, or other emotional mental states such as disappointment, frustration. So, in meditators, develop the habit of mindful of their defiled mind, emotional mental states. They shall be able to make some progress in their mindfulness meditation, because mindfulness meditation is mental training, mental culture, or mental development. But sometimes meditators want to mindful of their mind, which is defiled by anger or aversion or feeling of frustration, disappointment. They still have to consider, or in other words, they should practice the second clear comprehension of suitability. Is the time is suitable for me to mindful of my mind? Is a place is suitable for me to mindful the my mind, or which is defiled at that moment? Because sometimes the time and the place are not suitable to practice mindfulness. For example, sometimes it's not possible to stop the meeting in order to mindful of the defiled mind, or anger, aversion, hatred, and so on. So at the time, meditators maintain some degree of awareness that my mind is defiled. There's a feeling of dislike or hatred towards someone. They still have to concentrate their mind on the meeting. So similarly, sometimes when one is having discussion or listening to the Dhamma talk, sometimes when one is not so mindful, defilements can arise. So it's important to mindful of that defilements at the time and so on. So if one has been practicing mindfulness diligently, if one does make progress in their practice of mindfulness, they shall experience that their mental defilements were getting lesser or weaker, because their mindfulness, we can say they have the habit of mindful of their mind. Mindfulness sati is one of the beautiful mental factors or beautiful cetasika as taught in the Abhidhamma. So this beautiful mental factor doesn't allow the mind to be defiled. It doesn't accept any unwholesome state to arise. If unwholesome states does arise, the mindfulness will arise instantly, be aware of it, and that unwholesome mental state will disappear quite instantly. So we can say that meditators sometimes cannot practice formal meditation. Formal meditation means doing the formal walking, meditation, sitting meditation, but they can practice mindfulness almost all the time, because mindfulness is mental training. So it's important to develop the habit of mindfulness in one's life. So this is the answer to the other question. Then the next one, occasionally external disturbances occur. A meditator's awareness will automatically directed to it. By noting, hearing, that disturbances persist for a long period. An unwholesome feeling may arise. What's the best way that a meditator can do to change the mood of meditation or move away from that place? In this awareness, in this occurrence, cause a hindrance to the practice of vipassana meditation. Um, so, external objects are not object of phenomena of mindfulness meditation, vipassana meditation. Meditators can only gain deeper and deeper vipassana concentration by being mindful of their own mental and physical phenomena or their own five aggregates as they really occur. But when the mindfulness is not yet strong, then that mindfulness will be easily distracted by external sense object or sound, noise, or voice, and so on. So sometimes meditators may have to mindful and note hearing. Whenever they hear some sound that has caught their attention completely. So some meditators may have to note hearing, but they may not have to note hearing every time they hear some sound. The meditators have to note hearing every time they hear some sound or noise or voice. Then the mind can become restless. They shall not be able to develop stronger and stronger mindfulness and deeper concentration. So as meditators practice intensively day by day, even they practice at home, they learn to be indifferent to the external sense object. Although they hear it, they continue to be mindful of their internal phenomena, or either a mental phenomenon or physical object. But sometimes the external sense object, for example, a sound, attracts their attention completely. They may have to note hearing. So when meditators note hearing 2 or 3 times, if the sound here means the sound environment, if the sound environment was persisting after noting hearing 2 or 3 times, the meditators may ignore that sound or the environment. They do not have to mindful and note it until that sound, the external sound had disappeared completely. But sometimes some external sound or noise distract the mindfulness and become a cause of arising, for example, unwholesome feeling or anger, dislike. Then meditators must mindful and note that anger, or it's important to mindful note that feeling of dislike, anger at that moment. So the external sound or any kinds of external sense object not a cause of cause of a hindrance to the practice of vipassana meditation. It is the meditator's defilement that will become a hindrance to the progress of vipassana meditation. It's not the external sense object that become a hindrance or obstacles to the progress of vipassana meditation. Actually, it's the meditator's own defilements that will become a hindrance or cause the obstacles to the progress of vipassana meditation. So meditators sometimes may have to take external sense object as an object of mindfulness meditation, vipassana meditation. But when they keep on practicing and do make progress in their practice of mindfulness meditation, their mindfulness will no longer take interest in the external sense object, such as the sound of the environments or the noise of the environments. So meditators sometimes may not have to move away from that place. They have to learn to face with it. That means the sound, noise of the environment that can cause the defilements to arise. But sometimes the sound is created by someone or yogis in the retreat center, or in other words, this sound is what they call man-made noise or sound. Then sometimes the what call the center or the management of the center may have to take some action so that this one will not create called this disturbance to other meditators. So in brief, hindrance to the practice mindfulness meditation is not external. Actually, it's found internal. So meditators must develop the right attitude of the practice. Then the next question, what's the difference between sati and sati sampajanya? Sati, as you know, is mindfulness. Sati sampajanya means mindfulness with clear comprehension. So when meditators have sati, at that time meditators may not have sampajanya or clear comprehension. But when meditators have sampajanya, clear comprehension, that time meditators definitely have mindfulness. So sometimes you have mindfulness, but you may not have what called sampajanya. Sampajanya means clear comprehension. That means one see things correctly, rightly, or evenly. In other words, one see, for example, one see the object clearly. This is nama, this is rupa. And then one see things correctly. In other words, one understand mental and physical phenomena correctly, rightly. In other words, one realizes clearly the specific characteristics of the mental and physical phenomena, their relationship in terms of cause and effect, and the three characteristics that are common to them, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this is known as clear comprehension. And meditators are able to comprehend clearly the true natures of mental and physical phenomena, because their five mental faculties are strong, or in other words, they have well developed, or their mental faculties are fully developed, and they are able to keep the mental faculties in balance. So at that time, meditators shall be able to practice mindfulness with clear comprehension. So as long as the meditators are not yet able to realize clearly through their personal experience or direct experience of the true natures of the mental physical phenomena, although they have mindfulness, they do not have clear comprehensions. So meditators have to realize that if they have not yet strengthened the power of their mental faculties, they have not yet able to keep them in balance, then they shall not able to comprehend clearly the mental physical phenomena in their true nature. So that's why sometimes meditators have sati, but they may not have sampajanya. So this is a brief explanation between sati and sati sampajanya. What is the uniso manasikara? Does it apply in our meditation practice? Uniso manasikara is translated as wise attention or wise reflection. In the ultimate sense, uniso manasikara is similar to vipassana bhavana. In other words, uniso manasikara means wise attention, wise reflection. It means one has the uniso manasikara when one can see things as they really are. For example, anicca, impermanence as impermanent. If one doesn't have a uniso manasikara, the opposite of a uniso manasikara is a ayuniso manasikara. If one has ayuniso manasikara, then one you reflect or think that what is impermanent, they take it as permanent. So in the ultimate sense, uniso manasikara is similar to the vipassana bhavana. It means one reflect wisely that impermanent, the phenomena, the mental and physical phenomena are impermanent, or seeing impermanence as impermanent, seeing reflecting wisely dukkha as dukkha. They do not regard the phenomena which are dukkha, they do not regard them as dukkha. They wisely reflect the phenomena have the nature of anatta. They do not regard them as atta. So this is uniso manasikara. But sometimes uniso manasikara is a wise reflection, a wise consideration that lead to called arising of a wholesome outcome or wholesome results, or the wise reflection, wise thinking, or wise attention that help meditators to foster their wholesome state of mind. So, for example, sometimes one um, um, might be um, thinking or reflecting or considering that um, I'm doing this, my defilements can arise, um, or this is not the right time to say something, although it's right, or because I say it out at the wrong time, situation may become worse, or defilements may become stronger, anger may become stronger. So, after this wise reflection, one will find the right time, right place, or to say something. So, wise reflection, in another meaning, which is also in accordance with the scripture. When one practices yoniso manasikara at other time, for example, not at the time of practicing vipassana bhavana, means with the practice of this yoniso manasikara, that practice will lead to realization or gaining a wholesome outcome, wholesome results, able to foster the wholesome state of the mind. It means make your mind, your wholesome state of mind become stronger. This is a practice of yoniso manasikara. So sometimes this yoniso manasikara, in the ultimate sense, is similar to the practice of vipassana bhavana, but at that time, these wise reflections, wise attention will lead meditators or a person who practices this yoniso manasikara to realize the wholesome result, to foster their wholesome state of mind, and unwholesome state of mind will decrease, and so on, and able to lead them to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death or samsara. So this is about yoniso manasikara. Then the next question, what should a yogi do if he or she has an active mind after 1 hour walking meditation? Should he or she continue walking or change to sitting meditation? So, in the practice mindfulness meditation, sometimes we wise meditators, they have to develop active mind. Or in other words, active mind means meditators are able to mindful and note constantly and continuously. So when meditators can mindful and note constantly and continuously, then it seems that the mind is active. But actually, to know whether the mind is active or not active, the most important yardstick is the mindfulness, because we have explained that mindfulness meditation is not and noting is not noting meditation or labeling meditation. Mindfulness meditation is an experiential meditation. So when meditator's mind is active, he or she is able to note actively. Their mindfulness should be attentive, precise, energetic, or in other words, if they are able to pay full attention to every phenomenon noted by their mind, their mindfulness is able to fully experience the process of the phenomenon, they are able to realize the true nature of the mental physical phenomena clearly. Then definitely their mind is their mindfulness active. Concentration is deep enough. So we can say that the mindfulness is active from one moment to next moment. Concentration is also active from one moment to next moment. So sometimes meditators are able to mindful of different phenomena that were arising in their sitting meditation. For example, they mindful of arising movements. Suddenly, in the next moment, there's a pain. They mindful the pain. Then, the following moment, another pain has appeared as another place. They can see their mind will move to there instantly, or will appear there instantly. If there's thinking, they will perceive the thinking instantly. So the mind is active, able to mindful note from one object to next object. If their mindfulness and concentration are well developed, they will realize that the pain that was noted at that moment will subject to instant passing away. Then there will be another pain arising. Then their mindfulness will arise instantly. That pain also subject to instant passing away. If the movements arising appear, the mindfulness will appear there. That movements will subject to instant passing away. So sometimes when meditators can mindful of different phenomena, or the phenomena such as pain that has been arising here and there, the mindfulness can become active. Concentration is also active. But sometimes meditators do not have other phenomena. They only have the movements arising, falling, taken as an object of mindfulness. Sometimes they are mindful, note rising. Some meditators can perceive few processes of rising movements, few processes of falling movements. When they keep on mindful and note rising, falling, to become for a period of time, sometimes their mindfulness may not become active because the mindfulness has been perceiving, we can say, the same nature of movements for a period of time. So at the time, the mindfulness will no longer perceive that the one movements and the next movements and the following movements are three different objects of phenomena. So active means active mindfulness, active concentration means meditators are able to experience that the mindfulness and concentration are strong and able to realize the arising of the object instantly, and that object subject to instant passing away. And the mindfulness is not permanent process. Mindfulness is not an everlasting process. Meditators perceive that mindfulness also subject to instant arising and passing away with the object. So at the time, meditators have an active mind, thus active mindfulness, active concentration. So meditators can develop such an active mind after 1 hour walking meditation. Then they may proceed to practice their sitting meditation. When they change their postures from walking to sitting, they have to make sure that their mindfulness is sustained very well. Thus, their mindfulness and is continue to mindful and note actively when they change their postures. Concentration is also active. In this meditation, sometimes when we experience the concentration in the practice of vipassana meditation as an active concentration, is because when meditators have developed mindfulness and concentration well, they cannot concentrate their mind on one object for more than a moment. Every object doesn't last more than a moment. So that's why the mindfulness and concentration are active from one moment to next moment, from one object to next object, and so on. Then the next question, when one is mindful of a seeing object, a strong tension arises. Do one still maintain mindful of the seeing object or to note the tension object? So if one understands the guideline of mindfulness meditation or the principle of mindfulness meditation, then one will know which object should be taken as mindfulness at that time. So sometimes some meditators do not know the guideline well or do not remember the guideline. They may have to ask the teacher or experienced meditators which object should be taken. Actually, the object of mindfulness meditation is not determined by someone or by you. It's determined by the Dharma. Dharma means the guideline. So if one understands the guideline, definitely one will take the tension as the object of mindfulness. One will not mindful of the seeing anymore. So it's important to understand correctly that meditators have to practice mindfulness based on personal experience in accordance with the guideline of the mindfulness meditation. And then the next question, can Bhante kindly explain what's intuitive insight and self-discovery in relation to the practice of vipassana meditation? Actually, in the practice of vipassana meditation, in accordance with this tradition, usually what should be explained during the practice vipassana meditation, or to anyone who wishes to learn to practice mindfulness meditation, vipassana meditation, usually how to develop mindfulness is explained during instruction. The one who gives the explanation on how to practice mindfulness, how to practice vipassana meditation, will not give any hints what to gain, what experience to gain. They will not explain this in accordance to the true spirits of Dharma. The true spirits of Dharma, in accordance with the true spirits of vipassana meditation, we can say the one who gives the explanation, for example, the teacher of Vipassana meditation will not explain any experience to be gained. You will not give any hints to gain some experience. The teacher or one who gives the explanation on how to practice mindfulness meditation, how to practice Vipassana meditation, you only explain the way in accordance with the true spirits of Vipassana meditation. That's why if the meditators merely follow the instruction on the way to develop mindfulness, how to develop mindfulness, then they will discover some knowledge or experiences personally, directly from their practice. That's why the insight knowledge is not intuitive insight. Meditators discover the experience by themselves. But nowadays, sometimes some meditators like to share their experiences of practice, what they gain to other meditators. Some meditators may want to copy their experience, so they could not gain the real experience because they have some preconceived idea of the experiences of Vipassana meditation. Sometimes, either consciously or unconsciously, they practice mindfulness in order to gain the experiences of other meditators, share with them. So this intuitive insight, or what we call self-discovery, meditators need to practice mindfulness correctly in order to understand, realize what is anicca. Although scriptures explain anicca, meditators still have to realize anicca through personal experience in order to attain enlightenment. In fact, it's not possible to experience the experience of Vipassana meditation fully. We say the words we use only points to the direction, but cannot lead to full experience of the phenomena or to gain the true experience of the Vipassana meditation. So meditators should know the correct way to develop mindfulness, the correct way to practice Vipassana meditation. So if they know how, that's why eventually they gain the know-how. Know-how means knowledge. That should be gained from personal experience or direct experience. Then the next question. In Satipatthana meditation, what are the difference between Citta and Dhamma? As both emphasize very similar observation. Meditators wish to study the discourse Mahasatipada Sutta. They may refer to a book written by well-known Sayadaw U Sirananda about the four foundations of mindfulness. In fact, mindfulness actually according to the explanation of Abhidhamma, mindfulness have only single essence. I shall quote. The four foundations of mindfulness has a single essence, which consists of mindful contemplation of phenomena. They are differentiated insofar as this mental compassion is to apply to four objects: the body, feeling, the state of consciousness, and mental objects. Close to quote. So we cannot say we have 4 different type of consciousness, because mindfulness have only single essence, which consists of mental contemplation of phenomena. But objects are different. So you have chance to read the sutta, the discourse on the practice of 4 foundation mindfulness. In the third foundation, or Citta Nupassana Satipatthana, mindfulness of consciousness. Consciousness can't arise alone. Consciousness always arises with a group of mental factors or mental concomitants or cetasika in Pali. So in that foundation, mindfulness of consciousness or Citta Nupassana Satipatthana mention 16 types of mental factors that arise with consciousness. Whenever we mindful of consciousness, most likely we mindful of the mental factor as well. So there are 16 types of mental states that arise with the consciousness. I shall quote some of them. For example, consciousness with lust, so raga. So when this raga has appeared, then you mindful and note raga. Actually, you are practicing Citta Nupassana Satipatthana. If consciousness with dosa, hatred arise, then you mindful note hatred. You are practicing Citta Nupassana Satipatthana. So meditators may refer to that to that discourse on the practice of 4 foundation of mindfulness to know about, in order to understand these 16 types of mental factors that arise with consciousness. But Dharma consists of 5 subjects. The first are 5 mental hindrances. The second is 5 aggregates. Then the 6 sense bases. The fourth is 7 enlightenment factors. And the fifth is the noble truths. In fact, when we practice mindfulness meditation, our practice of mindfulness is based on the 4 noble truths. So when you have chance to join a longer retreat, or sometimes the Dhamma discourse on the practice mindfulness meditation, which is based on 4 noble truths, shall be explained. But during the practice, meditators should not think or contemplate this phenomenon is belong to which foundation. There's no room or time for meditators to think, to analyze this object belongs to which foundation and so on. So sometimes the phenomena seems overlapping. For example, the first, the aggregate rupa khanda or aggregate materiality is quite similar to the first foundation, Kayanupassana Satipatthana, where there's a subject on mindfulness of material elements. So meditators, if meditators wish to understand the discourse, the Mahasatipada Sutta, they may read the book written by Sayadaw Silananda. The publisher is Wisdom Publications of USA. Then the last question, will Bhante be conducting any Vipassana meditation retreat this year or next year? So the meditators interested, they may come to Damodaya during the Vasa or towards the end of the year, they may come to practice what they call winter retreat, for 2 weeks, 1 month, and so on. So this is the end of this Q&A. So I wish meditators always be heedful, or be heedful means be mindful, and able to practice the 4 foundation mindfulness correctly, in order to gain more wisdoms or insight knowledge, and able to overcome your own mental defilements gradually, and able to attain the final goal. That's the attainment of enlightenment, and be free from this suffering in samsara eventually.